All right. I've never thought about how to start this. Should we say hi?
Yeah. Okay, wait.
Okay.
Yeah, we can just say, like, you want to say, like, oh yeah, we can. I didn't have to roll. um,
Hi, I'm Kenneth.
And I'm Maya. Welcome to Journey to the Double Doc. We are incoming MD-PhD students at Penn and Harvard MIT, and we wanted to create this channel to chronicle our training paths.
We hope to share things that we learned along the way that we wish we had known, as well just as to be a general resource for those interested and passionate about science and medicine. So feel free to contact us at our Twitter handles or our email. We would love to hear what you want us to talk about, and so welcome to our channel and hope you will join us on our journey. I was like,
and I was like, oh my god, like, why are you talking? This is like your first impression.
In our last video, we discussed interviewing virtually. So feel free to check out that video if you're currently interviewing on the trail right now. It's a really nerve-wracking time for sure. I remember my first interview in the sense that I really don't remember anything from the first program I interviewed at, but they got a lot better over time, and as I did a few more, and then they really became fun because at the end of the day, I'll say this over and over again, but like cool PIs, so many just great, awesome people on the trail, both your peers and the people at these different programs, and you get to talk science and medicine and just share your curiosity and passion. So that was always something super enjoyable about every single interview that I attended.
And it's been super fun. I don't know if anyone's watching this, but I definitely saw a few people who I connected with who have like reached out to me before over videos at Harvard. So that was really cool to be able to meet people, and I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting some more people. It's been great to kind of see the interviewing class. So you all are really amazing. So keep the confidence. I know it's a tough process, but it's definitely like in the swing of things, and you're moving forward.
Yeah. And so on our end, we're moving forward through med school. One of the things that I say to everyone is the analogy of drinking from the fire hose is very accurate. But at the same time, after going through like a few exam cycles here at Penn, I've come to realize that you kind of are able to calibrate how much of that fire hose you actually need to drink as well. So it's been a process of not beating myself up too much about like not knowing everything, and I've gone very like blasé about like not knowing a lot of things. So it's definitely something that I've made my peace with, and I'm totally chill with like just trying to do the bare minimum to pass here is my mentality going on right now. We at Penn are like tested like every 3 or so weeks. And usually there are 3 exams in 3 different subjects. So last weekend, yesterday actually, just had a micro and immuno test, and the day before we had an anatomy test. And so so this week has been a lot of cramming, basically a lot of studying. Usually classes, let me stop there. Usually we have classes, a mix of lectures and small groups in order to reinforce and highlight stuff that was covered in lecture, as well as for anatomy, at least, since we do not have an in-person cadaver experience here at Penn this year, what we have is virtual pro sections where proctors do the dissection with some commentary for us to peruse. Peruse is not the right word. For us to consume. Yeah.
I like the word peruse. It makes me feel like you're just like kind of like skipping through the videos, just casually looking, which I wish I could do and still grasp anatomy, but sadly, even with consuming the videos, I don't.
It's not like I have a grasp of anatomy at all. I guess peruse was the appropriate word in that case, because sure, and that's totally fine. One of the slide Babakan made a presentation about Module 1, or what we call Mod 1, like our first set of classes, which covers our first semester of our first year. So we call it Mod 1. So the slides introducing Mod 1, like one of the first slides the upperclassmen had included a point saying that 75% equals 100%. And I was like, that's so true. That's so true. A pass is a pass in the day. And so if I'm getting a 75 and I'm passing, I'm going to be just as happy, honestly.
Yeah, no, we have a joke that, like, our curriculum isn't even pass-fail. It's, like, pass-pass. So basically just, like, pass now or pass later, which I think has been really nice to just kind of put, like, ourselves at ease. I do think it's really interesting. I feel like our class definitely goes through cycles where we're just, like, feeling really bad because we feel like we don't know that much. And, like, you know, we just want the course directors to almost, like kind of, like, criticize us or just, like, tell us, like, if we're not meeting expectations. But then they say we're doing fine. And I think it really is one of those things where you're so used to, like, grasping everything in undergrad, or that kind of being, like, the goal of, like, getting, you know, 100% on stuff, that in med school it really is different, where you're seeing so much information and you can't grasp it all at once, like, on the first pass, but it also, like, comes up a lot again and again. And I think initially there is, like, a huge learning curve, which is, like, kind of tough for me because it's, like, I was, like, learning all these new words and all these new, like, diseases that I hadn't really heard about. But then I think things are settling down now where it's, like, you know, I can actually start connecting things between classes and, like, things start really clicking. And that's been really exciting. So that's been one really nice part of, I guess, getting into the middle of the first semester.
So yeah, I also like the sense that I'm learning things that are clinically applicable, anatomy, micro, like these things to me like have greater like clinical valence than say like cell and tissue biology did, just or developmental biology did. For me, for some reason, maybe because I had past experience with dev bio or in those kinds of courses, so they felt more familiar. But anatomy microbiology is just so different. It's very memorization heavy at the end of the day. I've been doing so much more onking than I've ever wanted to do ever in my life. I never onked until I got into med school. And like now, like, oh my God. I can't imagine studying without Anki, honestly, just because it's so much memorization that I have to do to like get the material in my head, especially for anatomy micro. How else have you found classes are studying different on your end, Maya?
Yeah, I've also been doing a lot of Anki for, like, those who are watching and don't know, because I didn't really know what Anki was until this semester. It's basically like a flashcards app, but it's like better than that because it uses this algorithm to, like, space out your studying and, like, hopefully make sure that you're maintaining stuff better than if you just, like, flip through flashcards every day. So also been doing a lot of that in my more memorization heavy classes, which I honestly think right now is mainly anatomy. I think just with anatomy, like, there's just so much that you just have to, like, know before you can even think about, like, functional stuff or, like, things that are more conceptual. So that's definitely been helpful. One thing that actually I've been doing that I've actually really liked, I just started doing it a few weeks ago. But I've started to, like, just do, like, a clinical case a day. Like, someone gave me this, like, book that was like $12 on Amazon, so they got it for me. And I just, like, read through the case, and then I, like, have a spreadsheet where I, like, break down, like, the major features and, like, kind of the pathophysiology underneath it. And it takes me, like, 15 minutes. I do it in, like, the morning, especially when I don't want to do other stuff that's harder in the morning. But I actually have been really, really enjoying it, and I think it's been making me a better problem solver in class. So that's been really cool. So yeah, that's one thing that I kind of figured out this year that I really like. So, like, if anyone is looking for things where, you know, you sometimes feel kind of disconnected from the cases we do in class, that's been one thing that's helped me a lot. And I think it's also helped me feel kind of like I'm, you know, doing more clinical stuff right now, because obviously first year is, like, still pretty basic science heavy, especially in HST where it is, like, super focused on basic science. And then also kind of thinking about that in the context of balancing research kind of priorities, which, like, Kenneth, I know that you were saying that you were kind of, like, had found a lab for next semester, but I know the system at Penn is a little bit different. So, like, how are you fitting in research or thinking about research with clinical stuff right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm thinking about it with relation to specifically with clinical stuff, but rather in relation to it's something that's not ongoing and not studying. So often like it's a nice break to like go on Twitter and see what preprints are like buzzing around, and just like reading like this morning I was reading about how C. elegans, if you feed it certain bacteria, let me step back for context. C. elegans, a nematode worm that's used a lot in neurobiology and developmental biology in general. Basically, one of the things that we know about it is it has an invariant lineage. So it starts off as a one-celled zygote. We know that it goes through X hundred of divisions, and it ends up right under 1,000 number of cells every time, somatic cells every time. So I was reading this paper, this preprint about how if you feed it certain bacteria that produces biofilm or causes blockage in the intestine, the progeny of that mother actually has a different number of intestinal cells. So just like a really cool paper, super unrelated to what I'll ever do the rest of my life. But that's been just something that has allowed me a chance to like step away from a hardcore like, what is this artery, or like where does this vein go kind of thing. And so that's been really refreshing, as well as now during times of COVID, so many virtual talks and so many recorded talks. So YouTube is full of them. They're like everywhere. So honestly, odds are if there's a PI that you're like vaguely interested about anything that they do, you can probably find a recorded talk with them within the past 4 months where they're like talking about some recent work. So that also has been something that I've been very, very happy to take advantage of. And like take I'm next January, so the lab is getting a new microscope to do some what is it called now? I can't even remember what it's called. Damn. So, Jesus Christ, it's just super resolution. That's what I forgot. So the lab, so in January, the lab is getting a new microscope to do some super resolution microscopy. And at Penn, the January rotation in our first year is a commitment of 5 hours a week. So we don't have set time. It's just a time to be able to get a feel for the labs. Some students do literature review. Some students try to pilot some data, and just really the biggest goal is, at least for me, is to get a sense of the lab, the sense of the PI, the sense of the people, and would I be happy there? And so I am planning to use those 5 weeks to make sure that the microscope is being set up in a way that is amenable to my needs for once I join the lab, or for once I return to the lab in the summer, where I'll be doing my full rotation in that lab. And so right now for me, it's about like defining the problem that I would want to begin to chip away at during the summer, making sure that the microscope is set up in a way that allows me to do so, and just figuring out the technology that I need to put or like get like working in the lab in order to get to that project. So the lab generally, usually one of the biggest things, sequencing-based technology, which is a sequencing-based technology in order to map DNA contacts in the genome. And so I kind of want to do an imaging approach to it instead of a sequencing-based approach to it. So the Hi-C is usually you cross-link DNA that are physically close, and then you sequence it, and based on the pieces of DNA that are cross-linked with other pieces of DNA, you can infer that these pieces of DNA in close proximity, or they're not, or we're close proximity with other pieces of DNA. So you can do an imaging approach. And so it's about thinking about what kind of probes I want to get, like how the actual mechanics of the experiment will be. So I've been reading a lot of imaging papers, so a lot of oligo paints, a lot of DNA MERFish kind of stuff. Mina is another technology I've been reading up on. So been excited to read up on a really, really booming, really, really exciting time in chromatin imaging for sure. Incidentally, there was a review literally published November 12th, like a couple of days ago. So that was very helpful actually to like make sure like I've like didn't miss like any major like imaging technology. Orca was one that I forgot to mention like up top when I was like listing all the ones I'm reading, but it's been really cool to see not only the technology, but how they've been applying these technologies to answer these questions in the field. So very excited to, yeah, just very excited, period, full stop. I don't know, that was so rambly. Oh my God.
So I think it's also,
I'll cut it together somehow.
I was just gonna say that I think it's pretty cool that like you almost have like you have kind of like this period where it's just about like kind of like learning the field and like getting your feet wet, and then you have like a separate rotation period to actually like do the research, because I feel like that means like when you start the rotation, you know, like a lot of that initial like learning curve will already be gone for you, and you can like really dive like straight into the research. So that's like a cool system. I think that's actually a really good approach to research. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so they call it the Rampup Models. Kind of me, especially from low tech CL and into this like super resolution microscopy, like high throughput imaging kind of situation. I am very apprehensive about getting the technical things about this project de-risked, honestly, because I think that this project will be. I think that if the technology, I think the biggest risk in this project is the technical risk. Will we get the things to align? Will all the probes work? Will we be able to image what we're trying to capture? Will we be able to see and is it in the range where we'll be able to see an effect kind of thing as well? And so very excited to be able to really put in that kind of legwork over this lower stakes time. And it is a really good use of 5 hours a week because, nope, that's it. Good use of lower stakes time, full stop. I have to like stop. I need to know when to stop. Yeah.
I think that's like, I don't know, maybe I feel like it's like amplified on Zoom, but I feel like in classes or something, I'll just keep going and going until at some point I just decide to mute myself, and that's kind of the end of my contribution. So fun stuff with Zoom school, but yeah, no, I mean, I think, as I was saying, that's like a really cool approach. And like, honestly, it might even be good inspiration for people who are out there. I know, like, talking to like even some of my undergrad friends, that it's like tough right now because you aren't, you know, in lab as much as you might used to be used to being in lab. And it might be kind of hard to feel like, you know, quote unquote, productive about research. And like, on one hand, like, first of all, there's no impetus to like feel like you have to feel productive right now, but I know some people, they just really miss the science. And I think using this time to like look at reviews and like kind of get a better understanding of like a new part of a field is like really a great thing to do. So that's like awesome.
Yeah. And for you guys, you had a summer rotation, so I wonder how that has been bleeding into your first semester so far during med school.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on like the person, because they don't like, they're not, I guess they're not super against the idea of us like continuing research into the first semester, but it's also not something that, you know, maybe is like super advised or even definitely not required. For me, I think that I pretty much stopped doing my summer rotation project like pretty soon into the semester, just because like med school has been a lot. I am like working on a little bit of new analysis with my lab for just like a story they're trying to wrap up, which has been pretty exciting. So I'm excited to do some of the analysis for that. But the main thing I've been thinking about is still trying to figure out where I want to rotate in the spring. I think so actually one thing I've just been thinking about that I don't even think I like recognize, but like it's so cool as an MD-PhD student how you learn like so much about the human body. And then when you think about labs, there's just like so much different stuff that you can like do and that you learn about in your classes that's interesting. And I really feel like I'll go to biochem and I'll be like, you know, maybe I'm interested in metabolism, and then I'll go to genetics and I'm like, oh, I love genetics. I've always loved genetics. Actually, this is what it's meant to be, and on and on and on, which has led to a lot of shifts in like who I want to rotate with. But I think it's also super exciting. And honestly, I think I was thinking like, what would it be like if I was just doing a PhD, like some of my friends are doing, and I'm kind of comparing my first year experiences with them. And I think one thing I'm really grateful for is having this really strong grounding in human biology. I just think it's going to be super helpful for the research I eventually do, plus, like, of course, helpful for my future patients. But yeah, right now I'm thinking of something for next semester that is either in like aging genomics or like RNA biology, maybe like neurodegenerative disorders, something like that that kind of bridges aging and neuroscience, as I said I've been interested in the past. But we'll see how this changes when we post our next update video and I've taken another class that I assume is really cool. But yeah, I think it's been a good reminder also just to balance stuff, because like I think right now, I have some lab commitments, some school commitments, some club commitments, and of course, wrapping up my time home with my family, and I also want to spend time with them. So I'm curious, Kenneth, like, how have you been finding kind of like work-life balance in school, especially when like, your work is at home and your home is also where you're living the rest of your life while things are closed?
It's been weird. The boundary is so fuzzy that sometimes it's really good. Sometimes I'll be taking calls from my bed, and that's great. And so that's totally fine. And then like that just makes my life easier. But sometimes I won't. I will just work, eat, go back to work, and then go to sleep kind of thing. Like that's my evening. And so it's been nice to have other people who are also med students in my house, because they'll be like doing something and I'll be like, okay, like I'll join you guys for this board game. And it's like, that's been like a natural check, a natural valve for me to lean on in order to honestly like get my mind off something, or being able to go upstairs to our rooftop and just like hang out, like is always something that we enjoy doing a lot as well. And for me, cooking is always something that I enjoy doing. And so once a week, each of us, there's 6 of us in the house now. And so like pretty much once a week, like we each cook for the rest of the house. And so having a meal and like just like talking is a really nice way to keep me balanced during this time as well. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that sounds super fun. I feel like it's so nice to have roommates and be able to like kind of have that like natural like source of fun at home. Not that it like you can't have that with your parents, but it's definitely a little bit different. But I think that's really awesome.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like college. So I had a gap year, so I feel like I'm slightly back in college, but with a lot more space than I ever did at Columbia.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. My room is like, so I just signed my for an apartment with 2 of my classmates in like Fenway, which is like, yeah. So we're like right by Fenway Park, and we're like pretty near school. I'm really excited, but I'm most excited because my room is huge. It's like I don't know, it's like 300 square feet or something crazy, and I have my own bathroom and walk-in closet. So I'm gonna get a cat and put the cat, like a whole little cat like kingdom in the walk-in closet, because I have like my own closet. But I'm super excited. It's definitely going to be different than when I lived in a 98 square foot room at Columbia that faced the wall with no natural light.
I know. Oh my God. Yeah. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. And I think that will also help me find kind of like that natural, like nice of just like living with roommates who are like doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Yeah. And it's nice because like we'll watch lectures together, or we'll like watch talks together, or attend like mandatory meetings together. It just makes like it makes school like a lot more fun. Yeah.
Do you guys like watch lectures? Like, do you go to lecture, or do you just like kind of watch the recordings together on like 2x speed?
So currently we don't have in-person lectures. And so we have some recorded content as well as some live content. We have slowly been more and more watching the live content at a later time at 2x speed. We used to be very faithful about watching it as it is live, but that has been less the case. I would say we're now, used to be 100% always watching the live lectures. We're probably now 70% of the time watching the live lectures, 30 of the time watching it later at a higher speed, because I think we're just used to watching things at a higher speed. But also I get to pause and like write notes a lot more easily than I did if I were in watching the live lecture. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in some ways I'm like missing out on that classic part of the med school experience, because like all of our classes are mandatory like attendance. So I'm like always in class, it feels like. But actually, I mean, it's been pretty good. But there are definitely times where like I sort of like, you know, tune out a little bit, and then I end up watching the video as well after class. So then I'm kind of doing it twice. And so definitely times in which I regret not being completely on the ball during class. But I think it's just natural with like heavy lectures. Yeah. So I guess I will miss. Yeah. I guess that's one thing. Oh, sorry.
No, I just asked you what you will miss.
I was just gonna say, I think I'm gonna miss maybe having the easy access to recording. So like, you know, if I miss something in class or I just want to rewatch it, it's right there. But I, you know, would definitely rather be with my classmates, and I'm sure that it'll be really nice when we're in person too. Yeah, I think for me, oh sorry, I was gonna say, I think for me having lecture a lot has kind of, you know, made me also think about how I maintain work-life balance, because like on most days I'm in class pretty much from 10 to like 5, and then, you know, depending if I get up a little bit late, or if I want to like, you know, spend time with my family or have meetings after class, I can like easily just take up like most of the day and like kind of take away time for myself, especially when you factor in like time to do prep work and other stuff for class or studying. So I think I've been really trying to use this semester to kind of figure out like what works for me in keeping me kind of healthy. And like some of that is stuff I've done all through college, like running. I'm trying to like train for triathlon right now, but some of it has been new. We had a HST Women's Night paint night organized by some people in the years above us, and it was like so much fun. I really enjoyed it. So I've been like trying to paint now because they sent us paint kits in the mail, so I have like some leftover canvas and paint. Yeah, so this is, wait, I don't know if I can show you. This is what I made at paint night. It like, okay, I think, yeah, I was proud of it at first, but then I realized that if there was a sunset, the water wouldn't be blue. But anyway, it doesn't need to follow the laws of physics. The important thing is that it was enjoyable. So I think, you know, that's something that we all kind of have to consistently think about, work-life balance, especially in the physician scientist career where you're balancing so many things and work alone, let alone with life. And, you know, it's an evolving journey, but I think I'm really thankful to go to a program where they talk a lot to us about wellness, and like where my classmates all do like really cool things, because that has definitely encouraged me to kind of seek a work-life balance for myself and not fall into the trap of like constantly studying, because there's just so much stuff that you really could study 24/7 and probably not still master it at all, master all of it. So, you know, there's no point in even trying to do that when there's other stuff that's also needed to be healthy.
I totally agree. I can't imagine med school if it were not pass fail. I just don't get how that was possible for so long, and still is at some places. But yeah, just definitely really, it was really important for me to let go of like needing to know every single fact that I saw presented, kind of thing. And like, I guess I wasn't even really like always, I was really never there anyway. So I don't know like why I'm making such a bigger deal. I just feel so much more enabled to be justified in that belief now, more so than ever. So I've been really happy about that.
Yeah. And like also just the collaborative environment that can breed. I just really love that. I feel like our class is so good about sharing studying materials, which, you know, I definitely had like a good group of friends. I'm like, it was the same like that in college for me, but it wasn't like a across the board thing, right? It was just like kind of within the people I knew. So it's awesome to like have it just be like the class culture and not just like the culture of a friend group, for example.
Yeah, I would say my class is also very helpful, but not everyone like partakes in it, kind of thing. Like people will just post it on the drive, and then some people will download it, some people will download last year's materials or like from a few years ago. And so it's been very interesting. I wonder, do you feel like it's a function of how small the HST class is? Because that's a big difference between here and HST.
Yeah, I think that's like I think a big part of it is that it's like only 33 of us, and I think we just end up like, I guess it just ends up kind of being our default also, maybe because we don't have that many tests. Like we only have like one midterm for class, maybe two. So I think like because they're like kind of more material covered on those exams because they're less frequent, like we sort of like, it's kind of like college where like you do a lot of stuff in preparing for the midterms. Like people, you know, make these like big review sheets and stuff just because we kind of have the time to do so because we're not being tested as much, and also because we kind of need to, because it's been a while since we've maybe learned some of the material, and it's easy to forget stuff, especially when it is more memorization based, as med school can tend to be in the first few years.
And to close out work-life balance, doing these YouTube videos, Time with Maya, is always a lot of fun. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this update video. And if there's any kind of topics or content that you want us to either speak to or create content around, please let us know. We're dropping our usual subscribe. And until then, see everyone later.